Discover the heartwarming truth, a millionaire's incredible journey to reconnect with his three siblings. John Mitchell sped down the familiar road leading to Maplewood, the warmth of nostalgia battling the icy grip of embarrassment. The trees lining the road stood tall but slightly weary, like guardians watching over the echoes of his childhood. He was a self-made millionaire now, living in a world of glitzy parties and high-rise luxury. But as he passed run-down houses, some paint peeling and others on the verge of collapse, waves of regret crashed over him. It was easy to forget the laughter and struggle of family dinners back when wealth was a distant dream. Yet, here he was, returning to that small-town heartbeat that tugged at his memories. When he stepped onto his childhood home's porch, the familiar creak sent a shiver down his spine. His siblings were already waiting inside, and the air crackled with tension. Sarah, the teacher with a heart of gold, stood firmly with arms crossed, her eyes ablaze with resentment. "Look who finally decided to come back," she said, her voice steady but sharp. Jake, the quiet veteran, sank into the couch like a shadow, his gaze filled with a mix of longing and betrayal. The contrast between John's glamorous life and their daily struggles hit him like a brick. His opulence felt alien amidst their worn jeans and tired smiles. In the following days, a financial crisis struck Maplewood with a merciless force, squeezing its already fragile community. John, with pockets brimming with cash, thought he could rescue them. He approached Sarah and Jake with grand plans and offers of financial support. But their rejection was like a slap in the face. "It's not about money," Sarah whispered, her voice cracking. "We needed you here, not out there, chasing riches." John's heart sank, realizing that his gifts couldn't patch the wounds of abandonment. The emotions ran thick as the town gathered for a critical meeting, stories of heartache spilling forth like tributaries converging into a river of despair. Families spoke of lost dreams, neighbors turned against neighbors, all struggling to stay afloat. John's heart pounded as he sat in silence, the realization washing over him. His wealth was a wall that isolated him from the very people who shaped his life. As tensions boiled over, he felt the weight of every unfulfilled promise. It was all laid bare. His success was a gilded cage. Could he mend what was once broken? As the flickering hope of family and community began to emerge from the shadows, the yearning for connection stirred within him. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With determination swelling in his chest, John stood at a crossroads, ready to redefine success. Could he forge a new path toward reconciliation with Sarah and Jake, balancing his wealth with the values he once cherished? The town stood on the brink, the hope of healing hung in the air, waiting for him to take that first step into the unknown. Would he finally get the chance to uplift the community he once left behind? The unanswered questions loomed large, echoing in his soul like the fading laughter of family dinners long gone. The town hall buzzed with a mix of anxiety and hope, the scent of old wood and lingering sweat in the air as townsfolk gathered in anticipation. John could feel the eyes on him as he approached the podium, heart racing like a wild stallion. This was his moment to step forward, to face the very people he had turned his back on for years. "Hello, everyone," he started, the words fragile and hesitant, clashing with the echo of his past bravado. The room fell silent, all ears focused squarely on him. "I'm John Mitchell. I know I've been absent for a long time, too long. But I'm back, and I want to help. I want to fix this." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, doubt pooling in their collective expression. John's stomach tightened. They weren't looking for glitzy promises or flashy gestures. They needed something real, something concrete. "I know that money can't replace a person, and it can't replace years lost, but I want to use what I have to help us all get through this." Sarah shifted in her seat, disbelief written all over her face. "And what makes you think you can just swoop in and save us?" she called out, her voice holding a mix of anger and pain. "We didn't ask for charity, John." Her words cut deep, piercing the fragile hope he had been trying to weave. 1,000 retorts buzzed in his mind, but all he could muster was, I understand that you're skeptical. And I can't change the past. But, just give me a chance to show you that I want to be here for you now." As he scanned the room, he caught Jake's gaze, quiet but searching. For a moment, the two brothers locked eyes, and John felt a flicker of something, recognition, maybe. They were still brothers, under all the pain and disappointment. Jake stood slowly, each movement deliberate. "What do you propose?" He had a calmness about him, as if he were trying to give John a lifeline. "You say you want to help, but we need plans, not just words. Our town is hurting. What do you see?" In the pauses of the gathering, John began to speak with newfound clarity. "We could start a fund for small businesses struggling to stay open. We can create workshops, a community center, anything that gives people resources again." Each suggestion felt like a small brick he was placing to reconstruct the bridge he had once burned. Casual conversations swirled around the room as people began to weigh the possibilities, and John caught glimmers of hope from familiar faces. Yet, doubt still lingered, not just from his siblings, but from the whole community. "I can also help with job opportunities, find ways to bring in investment for the town. I want to rebuild what we lost, together." A low voice piped up from near the back, an older gentleman with worn hands. "And what's in it for you? Why now?" That question hung in the dim air, heavy and demanding truth. John had to think fast. "Because I can't let my past mistakes define me. Losing touch with you, I lost touch with who I was." With every word, he felt lighter, his heart swelling with ambition as encouragement and skepticism danced in the room. Maybe he could change their minds, but would it even be enough? Before the meeting ended, John took a deep breath. "All I'm asking is for a chance. I can't change the past, but I want a shot at making the future something we can all be proud of, something we can achieve together." As he stepped down from the podium, uncertainty thick in the air, he felt the weight of potential lives on his shoulders. The energy in the room shifted slightly, but he needed a breakthrough, something that would pull Sarah and Jake into his vision. Would they see him as a lost brother or just a faded memory? As the meeting adjourned, John's hopes and fears clashed within. He had set the stage, but could he get his siblings on board? Would they be able to forgive, and could they unite to fight for their hometown? The future loomed ahead, and the answers were still beyond his grasp. John stepped off the podium, his pulse still racing. The murmurs of uncertainty washed over him like a cold wave. He tried to meet Sarah's gaze, hoping for a flicker of understanding. Instead, she turned away, arms crossed tightly over her chest, a wall he couldn't breach. As townsfolk began to disperse, John felt Jake's hand on his shoulder, steadying him. "Let us talk," he said quietly, guiding John toward the back of the hall. They stepped into a muted hallway, the sound of their footsteps echoing against the old wooden floor. "Do you really believe you can come back and just fix things?" Jake questioned, eyebrows knit together. "I have to try," John replied earnestly, desperation creeping into his voice. "I can't stand by anymore. We've lost too much. I want to help us rise from this." Jake let out a slow breath. "It's not just about money or plans, John. It's about trust. You left, and trust is hard to earn back." John nodded, his heart sinking. I know that. But if I don't start somewhere, we'll lose everything we have left." Jake's eyes softened. "Just remember, you can't do this alone. It'll take all of us." A tense silence hung in the air before John spoke again, quieter this time. Maybe I can reach out to Sarah. If she sees I'm serious, it could help." "No, she's been hurt more than both of us combined. She needs time," Jake warned, his voice firm yet understanding. Let us deal with the town first. Prove you can keep your promises. With the conversation weighing heavily on him, John returned to the bustling crowds outside. A few familiar faces approached him, echoing a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Each question felt like a test, a judge to his potential sincerity. What are you really offering? One woman asked, hands on her hips. We need specifics, John, another chimed in. As each query came, he felt the flames of his confidence flicker. Yet deep inside, he felt an ember of determination. I'll host a town meeting next week, open forum. We can brainstorm ideas together. I want to hear from everyone. There was a chorus of mixed reactions, some nodding, others shaking their heads. Why should we trust you? A voice cried out, cutting through the uncertainty. Because I'm here, he answered without hesitation, a spark igniting his conviction. I'm back to stay, and I will be accountable. If I fail, then you can hold me to it. A sudden silence enveloped the crowd, some pondering his words deeply. Was it the hope they craved? Or just another empty promise? As John spoke, he caught sight of Sarah lingering at the edge of the crowd, her expression unreadable. He wanted desperately to reach her, but the walls seemed too high. When the last question faded and the crowd began to scatter, John felt deflated yet fueled at the same time. He had made a small crack in the barrier, but a mountain still loomed ahead. He was determined. He would find a way to win back their trust and, most importantly, restore his family. The challenge was monumental, but no more than what they had faced before. As he turned to leave, John locked eyes with Jake once more. I'm going to need you. It starts with Sarah, doesn't it? Jake nodded slowly, understanding dawning across his features. Yeah, it does. Hope and fear twisted in John's stomach as he contemplated the next steps. How could he approach her? Would she even listen? His determination churned within him, igniting a fire that refused to be extinguished. I'll try, he whispered, looking towards the horizon, knowing the path would be anything but easy. Would he find the strength to mend what was broken, or would he lose his family all over again? John stood at the edge of the town square, the sun beginning to set behind the uneven skyline. A golden hue washed over everything, and he felt an odd sense of calm amidst the chaos brewing in his heart. As he pulled in a deep breath, the familiar smells of the bakery next door tugged at his memories, each sent a reminder of simpler times, of laughter shared with Sarah, but the air was heavy with apprehension, and he knew he had to act. Jake's warning echoed in his mind. Sarah needs time. Yet how much time? The uncertainty gnawed at him. How could he mend fences when he felt trapped behind them? His feet carried him towards Sarah's family home, an old two-story that looked much like he remembered, but faded slightly, as if the house too had felt the weight of lost time. He hesitated at the door, heart racing. What if she slammed it shut again? What if she refused to even hear him out? Taking a breath, he knocked softly, the sound reverberating in his chest. When he didn't hear footsteps right away, doubt swelled. Just as he turned to walk away, the door creaked open. There she stood, arms still wrapped tightly across her chest. John saw the flicker of surprise in her eyes turn to something more cautious. What do you want? Sarah's voice was a guarded whisper, a protective barrier against the world and, more painfully, against him. I need to talk. The request tumbled out clumsily, yet there was urgency behind it that even surprised him. Just give me a chance. She hesitated, the conflict on her face palpable. I don't think that's a good idea, John. Please, just 5 minutes. He took a step closer, desperation fueling him. No pressure, just talk. I owe you that much, at least. A long silence stretched between them, thick and tense. Finally, she sighed, exhaling a breath that seemed to carry years of hurt. All right, she relented, stepping back to let him in, though her body remained tense and watchful. Inside, the familiar decor felt strangely foreign. The living room was decorated with old family photos and echoes of laughter that seemed to hang in the air like ghosts. "John," she spoke as they settled on opposite ends of the worn couch, "why are you really here? You just walked away." The walls of her words seemed to close in on him. He fought for the right phrasing, the right tone. "I left thinking I was doing the right thing. But I was wrong. I should have fought for us, for this town." He paused to meet her gaze, vulnerability creeping in. "I was scared and I thought leaving was best. Now I'm back, trying to make amends." Her arms unfolded slightly, an unguarding that offered a glimmer of hope. "And what makes you think it will be different this time?" "Because I know what I lost," he said, his voice steady, "and I'm willing to do the work, whatever it takes. You, our family, this town, it all matters. I want to build something, not just fix it overnight." Her eyes searched his, seeking truth amongst the layers of his words. The simple honesty in her expression struck him like a blade, slicing through the noise around them. "I don't know if I can trust you," Sarah whispered, and in that moment, fear plummeted in his chest. "I understand. But let me prove it to you." The tension swirled in the room like a storm. He felt the weight of her silence pressing down on him like a lead blanket. Could he really meet her halfway? As they lingered in a moment suspended in time, John wondered if he could truly win her back, piece by piece, every shared memory and unspoken grief. Even as new conversations began to bubble up, he was painfully aware that just speaking words wasn't enough. "So, what's next?" she finally asked, her voice tentative. "I'll explain my ideas for the town meeting. We can brainstorm solutions together." Sarah's face softened at the mention of the town, just a flicker, but it ignited something inside of John, a spark of hope. Maybe that could be a start. She leaned forward slightly, her walls slowly crumbling. John smiled, cautious but encouraged. Maybe, just maybe, they were on the brink of something. But as the weight of their past danced between them, he couldn't shake the feeling that the hardest part was yet to come. "Just promise me one thing," she said suddenly, her eyes serious. "Anything," he replied, his heart in his throat. "Don't promise what you can't keep." He nodded, knowing the road ahead would be littered with obstacles. But as John faced Sarah, he felt a wall begin to crack, the first step toward rebuilding their lives. Yet, as daylight waned outside, so did his confidence. How could he sustain this fragile connection? Would he finally be able to break free of the chaos they once faced as a family? Or was it all just a fleeting moment in the storm? John took a deep breath, the scent of old wood and fading memories swirling around him. "All right," he began, his voice slightly steadier. "Let's talk about the town meeting." Sarah's brow furrowed, as if skeptical, but he noticed a flicker of interest in her eyes. "What do you want to change?" she asked, crossing her arms again, though this time the guard felt less rigid. "Everything could use a fresh start," he replied, leaning forward, determined to close the distance. "The town needs a new community center, a space where everyone can gather, share ideas, and breathe life back into our community. I've been thinking a lot about it, about how everyone feels disconnected. We could hold events, the farmers market, movie nights, classes for the kids." Her expression softened a little more. He could see the wheels turning in her head. "And how do you plan to fund it?" she probed, a hint of skepticism threading her words. "I have some savings set aside. The old mill is worth a lot, we could sell it and use the funds for the center. I just need the community's buy-in. That's why I want you on board. You know what matters most to people in our town." Slowly, she unfolded her arms. "You want my help after walking out on everything? I want your perspective and maybe a chance to show my commitment." For a moment, Sarah fell silent. He watched her eyes drift toward the window, where the last rays of sunlight flickered like an ember. The soft glow highlighted the doubts etched across her face and filled the room with a heavy stillness. "What's really driving you?" she asked, finally looking back at him. There was a challenge in her gaze, a reminder of the boundaries they needed to navigate. Is it just about the town, or is it about us too? A knot tightened in his stomach. This moment felt fragile, yet crucial. I came back to fix everything, but I don't expect it to be easy. I'm here for you, Sarah, and for us. Proving it will take more than words, she replied, each syllable heavy but with a hint of openness. I know, John said softly. I want to earn your trust. I know I messed up before, but he hesitated. I want to show you that I've changed. As her gaze bore into him, he saw an indecision that matched his own. He ached to reach out, to hold her hand and bring them back together, but he knew he couldn't push. Let us tackle the meeting first, she finally said, the resolve in her voice steadying him. If you're serious, I'll help you craft the proposal. But you need to promise me you won't back down this time. I promise, he replied, every ounce of sincerity he could muster lacing his words. Then let us set a date, she said, a slight smile breaking through the tension. But you should know it won't be easy. You need to be ready for the hard questions. Hard questions are my specialty, John chuckled, a surge of hope bubbling in his chest, but just as they were starting to bridge that gap, the sound of laughter echoed from outside. Children raced past the window, carefree, their laughter a reminder of the happiness that faded within these walls. The contrast hit him hard, and he felt an ache of urgency rise in his chest. Look, Sarah, he said, pausing as the cheerful sounds lingered, if we don't jump in now, we'll never find our footing. We can't go back to how things were. Let us create something new. As she mulled over his words, a moment of silence settled between them again. But this time, it wasn't filled with tension, it was thick with possibility. I'll need time to think about this, she finally confessed. I get that, he replied, his stomach fluttering with a mixture of fear and excitement. But just know, every moment you give me fuels my hope. And whatever comes next, I'll be ready to face it with you. The evening light spilled into the room, casting shadows that felt less daunting. As their eyes met again, John held on to that tiny sliver of light, hoping it might illuminate the path ahead. What if she began, biting her lip as if playing with a thought? He leaned in, anticipation rising. What if this was the moment where everything changed? Would she finally take the leap with him, and just like that, he could feel the weight of her next question, the one that could shape everything hanging in the air between them. The air thickened with anticipation, as if the whole world paused to give them this moment. Sarah looked away, her fingers tapping lightly on her arm. The vulnerability settled around them, and John's heart raced with both fear and hope. What if we don't just want this for the town? She finally asked, the words weighing like a stone dropped in a still pond. What if we want this for us, too? What if this is a chance to rebuild everything we lost? John didn't breathe. He felt that old ache, the one that had haunted him since he left. That's exactly what I want, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. But I can't expect you to trust me blindly. Not after everything. Her gaze softened, but he could still see the ghost of hesitation. Trust isn't something I hand out lightly, John. It's earned over time, and I need to see real changes. He nodded, absorbing this reality like a sponge. I'll prove it to you, he insisted, desperate to show her that he was serious. Not just with this proposal, but with everything I do moving forward. A smile broke through her uncertainty, just a flicker, but it was enough to warm the chilly room. Okay. Let us start with this proposal then. We'll figure out what the town needs. But it won't just be about the center, John. We all need to feel connected again. I want to know what you envision for the town. As he began to share his thoughts, the conversation flowed more naturally. Words spilled about connecting old and new, integrating voices that had been silent for far too long. His passion bubbled over, igniting a spark in Sarah's eyes. Each idea built a bridge between them, a foundation they could both stand on. Just then, the door creaked open, breaking their focus. Old Mrs. Thompson poked her head in, a warm smile illuminating her face. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important," she chirped. "Not at all, Mrs. Thompson," Sarah replied, her tone brightening as she turned to John. "We were just discussing the town meeting." "Well," Mrs. Thompson said, her eyes twinkling, "if you're planning to revitalize this town, count on me to help in any way I can. This community center idea might just bring us all back together, you know. We could host bingo nights, quilting bees, and potlucks." John's heart soared. "Exactly what we need," he agreed. The gentle laughter and encouragement from Mrs. Thompson felt like a tiny moment of triumph, like the first rays of a new dawn. But as she left, John's mind returned to Sarah. He could feel her eyes on him, filled with concern. "What if we can't do it?" she asked, her voice dropping. "What if the townspeople don't accept the idea? Then we'll adjust." "We won't give up," he said, feeling suddenly resolute. "This town isn't just a place, it's home. And I won't let it slip away again." Sarah looked at him intently, almost reading his thoughts. "And what if you're wrong about everything, John? About us? What if you don't belong here anymore?" The words pierced him. The sting resonated deep within, dredging up old insecurities. "Then I'll figure it out," he shot back, his voice firmer than he felt. "I don't think that anymore. This town, it's where I want to be." Silence filled the space, heavy yet charged. Each heartbeat was loud and raw as they tried to gauge the distance between hope and reality. "All right," Sarah finally said, her brow furrowing in determination. "Let us write this proposal together. It's a step, and I'm in." Relief surged through John, almost overwhelming him. "Thank you. That means the world to me." As they began to plan, a warmth spread between them, igniting a flicker of something deeper. But as they drafted ideas and brainstormed, a shadow lingered in John's mind. This was just the beginning. What if everyone didn't embrace their plans? What if they faced serious opposition? The thought gnawed at him as he caught Sarah's eye, filled with a mix of hope and fear. John inhaled deeply, preparing himself for whatever lay ahead. "No matter what happens, we face it together," he reassured her, determination lacing his tone. She nodded, a slight smile curving her lips, but there was uncertainty there as well, a clarity that they had only just begun to scratch the surface of their journey. As they wrapped up the evening and agreed to meet again soon, John felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. He believed in the future they could forge. But deep down, he knew that the hardest struggles still awaited them. What would happen when the town meeting finally arrived? Would they step forward together, or would fear pull them apart again? A chill swept through the community center the next day. John arrived early, the sun barely peeking over the horizon, casting a warm glow against the brick walls. The day of the town meeting had finally come. He felt a mix of excitement and dread brewing in his chest. Every step closer to the center brought with it the heaviness of uncertainty, the weight of expectations. As he paced outside the entrance, he rehearsed his speech over and over in his mind. Would they sense his sincerity? Would the community embrace his vision after years of disconnection? He pinched the bridge of his nose, forcing himself to take deep breaths. "Hey," Sarah's voice broke through his anxious thoughts. She stepped into view, her smile bright enough to cut through the fog of doubt. "You look like you could use some coffee." She held out a steaming cup, the aroma wrapping around him like a comforting blanket. "Thanks," he said, savoring the warmth in his hands. "I'm just worried." "About what?" she asked, her eyes narrowing slightly as she studied him. "Everything. The proposal. The townspeople. What if they don't believe us? What if they don't want change?" The words tumbled out, thick with the fear of failure. Sarah took a sip of her coffee, her demeanor shifting slightly. "Change is scary for everyone. It's not just about the proposal, John. It's about showing them we mean it. That we care. He looked into her eyes and felt a surge of determination. You're right. We need to show them that things can be different. Together, they entered the building, which was already beginning to fill with familiar faces. The layout was comforting yet overwhelming. The chairs arranged in a large circle made it feel like a clash of ideas was about to take place. He scanned the crowd, catching glimpses of neighbors, friends, and even a few old foes. As he took his seat next to Sarah, he noticed the palpable tension hanging in the air. The town council began to call the meeting to order. Heads turned, some curious, others more skeptical, and John's heart raced. He exchanged a glance with Sarah, who squeezed his hand ever so lightly, a small gesture that anchored him in that moment. "Thank you all for coming," the mayor said, his voice steady. "Today, we are here to discuss the future of our community center and how we can all work together to make it a vibrant gathering place once again." As the mayor introduced John and Sarah, John felt a mix of anticipation and fear wash over him again. He stood, heart pounding, words dancing on the edge of his tongue. "Thank you for the warm welcome. We're here not just to present a proposal," he began, glancing at Sarah for reassurance, "but to listen. To learn what you feel our town needs." He launched into their shared vision of connecting the town, drawing on old traditions while weaving in new ideas. Every word felt heavy with consequence, clearing out the cobwebs of past mistakes. He poured himself into the presentation, trying to ignite the spark of hope within the room, but as he looked out over the crowd, a few faces remained skeptical, arms crossed, brows furrowed. He could feel doubt threading through the air, pricking at the fragile confidence he was building. Just when he began to falter, an older gentleman stood up from the back, his voice rough and thick with age. "How do we know you won't just leave us again, John?" The question hung like a weight in the air, drawing gasps and whispers from the crowd. John's stomach dropped. That single question echoed much deeper than the surface. But this wasn't just about him anymore, it was about the entire town. "If I can prove I belong here, will you believe in this vision?" he asked, his voice breaking through the whispers, raw and sincere. "Let me show you that my heart is here, and I'm not going anywhere." Sarah placed a hand on his back, grounding him as a collective murmur arose among the townspeople. He could see curiosity mixed with skepticism, but there was something else, a flicker of hope. As the meeting progressed, John realized he was fighting more than just to save a community center. He was fighting to reclaim his place among them, to prove that he could still be one of them. But just as the conversation began to gain momentum, a voice burst through the crowd, challenging everything he had just built. "What about the money? Who's going to fund all this?" John's heart sank. The struggle was far from over. Would they find a way to gather the resources they needed, or would the weight of doubt pull them under before they even began? They were just beginning to see the light of possibility, but would it be enough to push through the barriers? With the stakes rising, John understood one thing: the real challenge was only just beginning. The tension in the room crackled like a live wire. All eyes turned toward John as the question loomed large. What about the money? It resonated deeply, swinging the mood from tentative hope to icy caution. John felt the weight crushing him. He glanced around. Some faces were openly skeptical, while others looked resigned. It was clear they had heard promises before, and breaking down that wall would take more than just words. He could feel Sarah's hand on his back, warm and steady. He needed that support now more than ever. "Great question," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "We've thought about funding too. We know the community center needs financial backing, and that's why we're here to ask for your partnership." He watched as people's eyebrows shot up. Partnership? The word hung in the air, bold and daring. He pressed on. "We want to hear your ideas. We want to involve all of you in this process. Maybe you have connections we don't. Each of us has something to offer." A young woman spoke up, her voice shaking but passionate. "We're tired of just hearing big promises. We need specifics like who exactly will lead these efforts. So many things have been left unfinished in the past. That's fair, John replied, his heart racing. What if I promised to be on the ground every day? Not just presenting plans, but actively working with all of you. Sarah and I would keep you updated, listen to your concerns. We want to create a space where everyone feels heard. And those connections? Maybe we can help each other hold fundraisers, apply for grants together. Another voice joined in from the back of the room. But what if it doesn't work? What if we put our trust in you, and things just fall apart again? John took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. I get it. Trust is hard to earn back. I've made my mistakes, but I won't shy away from doing the hard work this time. He glanced at Sarah, who nodded with fierce determination. And I know I can't do it alone. But sitting here, just talking about it without action, that's what leads to failure. Silence fell, thick and palpable. Faces softened, the hardened shells beginning to crack. It was a small victory, but John felt it like a flicker of light breaking through the fog. He turned to the group. What if we organized a community event to kick things off? Something fun, where we can brainstorm ideas and build trust. It'll give everyone a chance to get involved without the pressure of the formal meeting. A few heads nodded, and one man stood up, a hint of a smile on his face. I used to organize events. I have some ideas. I think I could help. The energy in the room shifted again, and John could feel the air change. People were engaging, leaning in. Hope was seeping back in. The group began to discuss potential ideas: block parties, yard sales, community cleanups. John felt something mirroring his heart outside of himself. It was a sense of unity born from shared struggle and renewed faith. Just as they started to build momentum, the conversation took another turn. But what do you really want, John? Is it about the community, or is it about redemption for you? That question hung in the air. John swallowed hard. His heart raced. Did he really know what he wanted? Was this merely a quest for his own redemption, or was he genuinely committed to the community? Before he could respond, Sarah spoke up. It's about both. We learn from our past, but we can do better. As long as that's our goal, we have a chance. We want to create something lasting, something we all can be proud of. John breathed, her words wrapping around him like a lifeline. He didn't have all the answers, but he was ready to listen, ready to commit. As the meeting continued, he realized that they were at the brink of something powerful. But the question lingered in the air, heavy and unaddressed. Would he be strong enough to follow through, no matter what the future held? The room pulsed with energy and uncertainty. They stood at a crossroads, and John could feel the gravity of that moment. The path forward was open, but the distance was fraught with doubt. What would it take to truly build that trust again? And would the community be willing to take that leap with him? The discussions continued to swirl, fueled by hope and a touch of fear. John could hardly keep up as ideas bounced around, sparking excitement among the crowd. He could see that glimmers of enthusiasm were starting to light the eyes of skeptics. Yet, that nagging question, the one that hung over him like a storm cloud, remained unresolved. A tall man with a baseball cap leaned in. What if we pooled our resources? I mean, we all have skills, hobbies, and perhaps even some cash we can contribute. It's a gamble, but isn't everything these days? John felt a rush of inspiration. Absolutely. Each of us has something valuable to bring to the table. Let us think about what we can do together. We can even create committees based on skills. Sarah tapped his shoulder and whispered, people want to feel ownership of this project, John. They want to know it's not just your vision but theirs, too. Her voice was steady and reassuring. He nodded and turned back to the group. Yes, committees for fundraising, planning events, even outreach to other local businesses that might want to help. This can be a community effort. The murmurs of agreement were becoming a chorus. People were slowly removing the armor of skepticism, even if just a bit. Just then, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes raised her hand. And what about feedback? What happens if things start to go off track again? It was a valid question. John felt his stomach twist. That's something we'll have to build in from the start. Regular check-ins, open forums. I want feedback to be a part of our process. If something's not working, we change it together. No more top-down decisions. This is about us. His voice quivered with resolve. A small smile crept onto the woman's face, a flicker of something positive in the sea of doubt. Others began to chime in, suggesting ideas about monthly meetings, community boards, and even social media groups for updates and encouragement. It was contagious. This energy fueled by collaboration felt new and empowering. They were no longer isolated voices in the crowd, they were a community, seeking a common purpose. John couldn't help but feel exhilarated. He scanned the room, watching as each person engaged. Old grudges seemed to fade, replaced by something warmer and understanding that they were all in this together, with their own histories, hopes, and fears, but the shadows of doubt still lingered in the corners. The stark truth was they weren't in a fairy tale. John thought about his past, the failures he defaced, and wondered if he was truly equipped to lead them from the darkness into this newly kindled light. He took a deep breath, arm crossed nervously. The doubt surged back, whispering questions in his mind. What if he couldn't deliver? What if the failures of the past were waiting to pull him back, to trap him in their grasp? Then, he felt Sarah's hand on his arm once more, reminding him of the warmth and support around them. Let's make a promise, he said, leaning forward, pouring every ounce of sincerity into his words. We move forward together. We support each other, and I promise to hold myself accountable. Just as you're putting your trust in me, I'll put my trust in you. The room erupted in a gentle but firm applause. It wasn't just an acknowledgement of his commitment, it was a promise of unity, of collective effort. But just as the mood lifted, a sudden voice cut through. What happens if your past catches up with you? A worried voice from the back echoed ominously, driving tension back into the air. John's heart sank. The room shifted again. What if he wasn't ready? Had he truly left the shadows behind? As uncertainty washed over him, he realized they had barely begun to scratch the surface of healing. Could he truly lead these people without dragging them into his old mistakes, he thought, battling his own demons? Would the path to redemption finally reveal itself, or would he stumble once more? Now, the stakes were higher than ever. Would the community embrace him and his journey, or would they choose to stand back, waiting for the past to unfold again? The days turned into weeks as John poured himself into the community's revitalization. He had set up committees filled with passionate townsfolk eager to transform Maplewood. The community center plan evolved into a living tapestry woven from volunteer efforts, brainstorming sessions, and small victories. It felt like they were gradually shifting the tide of doubt, yet, whenever he caught sight of Sarah, memories of their painful past seared through his heart like a brand. They had begun to build something beautiful, but John could still see the hesitance in her eyes. He knew that words could build bridges, but actions would solidify them. One crisp Saturday morning, John stood at the edge of the freshly painted community center, ready for the grand reopening. The bright sunshine bathed the building in warmth, a stark contrast to the chill of uncertainty he had felt before. The ribbon cutting would symbolize their hard work and commitment. Yet, beneath the surface, he felt the familiar jitter of anxiety. People started to gather, excited chatter coloring the air. Jake arrived first, a supportive smile on his face. You ready for this? He asked, giving John a reassuring clap on the back. John nodded, his heart racing. I am. But it feels like a leap into the unknown. The only way is forward, brother, Jake said firmly. You've put in the effort, and they see that. Sarah approached, her enthusiasm palpable, though she still carried a hint of caution. Are you nervous? She asked, her voice gentle while her eyes searched his. A little, John admitted, trying to gauge the atmosphere around them. What if today doesn't go as planned? She placed a steady hand on his arm, grounding him. The work you've done means something. Just share that with everyone. Taking a deep breath, John stepped up to the microphone. As he looked out at the welcoming faces in the crowd, he realized this was his moment, not just to showcase the new center but to solidify his place back among them. Thank you all for being here today, he began, his voice clear and steady. This is not just about a building. It's about a community that comes together, embraces each other, flaws and all. An encouraging murmur rippled through the crowd. He continued, sharing their vision of unity, resilience, and support. For years, I let my ambitions blind me to what truly mattered. I left without a goodbye, and I want to make that right. I'm back now, not as a wealthy outsider but as one of you ready to build something together. He felt the air shift. Faces softened as John shared his heart, the warmth of forged connections enveloping him. He caught Sarah's gaze and saw something shift within her. Was it trust? Hope? A chance to reconnect? As he cut the ribbon, the crowd erupted in applause. Laughter echoed, parents lifting children on shoulders, pride and optimism flooding the space. It felt like a collective heartbeat, alive and vibrant. See? Jake said, standing beside Sarah. You did it. John looked back at Sarah, who beamed with a radiant smile. This means so much, John. You've really brought us back together. But as the applause faded and the crowd began to move inside, a troublesome voice from the back chimed in, cutting through the joy. You really think this will last? You've promised before. John froze, the words stabbing at his heart. He looked around, seeing the murmur of doubt ripple through the crowd. You're right, he said, keeping his voice calm. It's easy to promise but hard to deliver. I've learned that the real work happens now. We need to keep showing up for each other day after day. The air felt thick, the disappointment threatened to surge. But then, from the crowd, a woman stepped forward, her face softening. I think it's worth a shot if everyone works together. Others started nodding, agreement buzzing like a current through the room. With renewed energy, John invited each of them to share ideas for upcoming events. They began discussing a farmer's market, community cleanup days, and workshops to connect businesses and residents. As voices carried hope and renewed vision, John felt the threads of connection weave tighter. Days turned into months. The community center became a heartbeat of Maplewood, filled with laughter, new friendships, and even the occasional disagreement. They weren't perfect, they wouldn't always see eye to eye, but they tackled issues with respect and solidarity. Through it all, John and Sarah worked side by side, rebuilding trust with each small gesture. The more they created together, the more layers of vulnerability peeled away. While the shadows of their past lingered, they became less daunting. One evening, as they were wrapping up a successful fair at the center, John turned to Sarah. Look at this place. It's alive again. Yes, it is, she replied, a smile warming her features. And it's not just about bricks and mortar. It's about us, about the journey. He nodded, holding her gaze. I want this to last. For you, for us. I know, she said softly, but rebuilding trust takes time. Just promise me you'll keep working at it, with this town and with me. Absolutely, he affirmed, feeling a rush of determination. I'll do what it takes to keep earning that trust, every day. As they looked out at the community gathered beneath the twinkling lights, a soft breeze swept through, carrying with it the laughter of children and the echoes of their reclaimed joy. John realized that while their past would always be a part of them, the future was filled with possibility, and he was ready to embrace it. And right there, they stepped into that bright future, not just as John the millionaire but as John, a brother, a community member, and someone willing to grow, learn, and love. As the program wound down, the warmth of connection surged between them, a promise of hope under the stars. This was just the beginning. If you felt this story resonate with you, you need to subscribe now to the channel. Don't miss the next exclusive stories that inspire transformation. Leave a like right away to feed the algorithm. Your support is crucial. Share your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear how this ending touched your heart. And don't wait, not even 1 second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this uplifting journey. Only true fans understand how powerful these actions are in elevating our community. Let us keep this momentum going.